actually be painting a still life. We wanted to change it up a bit just because some of the comments and people said, hey, it might be interesting to see something else. The last several sessions we've done portraits. And so, periodically we want to change it up. We want to make it interesting and for a variety of different artists and painters who enjoy other things. So today we're going to be painting grapes and a skull and a little goblet. And I just wanted to make sure y'all know, please give us questions and make comments. You can do that in 2 different places. You can do that on YouTube. Also, you can do that on our website. And there's a comment section right below, eastoaksstudio.com. Go to our live streams, Oil Painting from Life 4A. And you should be able to see right below where you can actually ask a couple of questions. Also, final thing, we actually took shots, reference shots, of what we'll be painting from all of our vantage points. So if you want that, you can actually submit your email and receive all of those vantage points so that if you want to paint along with us, you can. You can keep rewatching this over and over again, so on YouTube. And so once you get those photos put up there, you can actually start painting with us. So without further ado, we're going to actually put on a little bit of music and get started and, just chat it up. Please ask us some questions. We'd love to have some conversations with you. All right, everybody, let's get started. Today we have Alex and Divya, Venetia. They're going to be painting with us today. So basically all the East Oaks people in the house. So also we actually have a new member of our team. Behind the switcher board is my wife, my one and only love of my life. She is going to be, she and I, we've been having a few training sessions on how to actually do the switcher board. So you won't see her, but you will definitely experience her. So, let's get this. Alright, let's see if I can get the music going and then get started. So our neighbors decided that it would be a really great idea to cut down all of their trees in their yard. And so there's been a chainsaw going on all day. So we're going to try to cover it up with the music. So Alex has got a big week coming up ahead. He has his solo show in Arcadia Gallery over in California. So we are super excited for him. Sadly, I won't be able to go. I'm going to be teaching a workshop in Atlanta, but boy, I wish I could be there. If y'all are in the LA area, you got to go stop by. Go stop by Arcadia Gallery. It's in Pasadena. And it will be well worth your time. It's going to be a gorgeous show. And be able to watch the whole time while he's been painting on this whole series. And really, it's just incredible. So we got to talk him up because he won't talk himself up. But
yeah, it's going to be fun. My first time in California, so that'll be cool.
Oh man, really?
Yeah.
Wow. Y'all gonna do any sightseeing while you're out there too?
Well, yes, I think so. Just, I don't think we have a very distinct plan yet.
Yeah.
What were you going to say?
I think we're going to see Eaton Canyon or something.
Oh, cool. Okay.
Some kind of hike that
Man, there's so
Oh,
much.
and see the Getty Museum, right?
Oh yeah.
Isn't that in California?
That would be fun. You gotta go, to some of the LA spots too. You're gonna be basically right in the heart of it. I tell you, a while back, we were over there for Michael's solo show in Maxwell Alexander Gallery, and Joe Hawkins, our film guy, he and I were staying in Pasadena, and we went to their, they have an actual huge flea market that is over by the Rose Bowl Stadium, and that's like right downtown Pasadena. It's massive. We had a blast. It was so much fun. But, I was talking to some buddies out there, and they're like, yeah, it's all right. You get tired of perfect weather all the time. So I thought that was really interesting. So I actually toned my canvas really dark today because I was just going to try something new and different. And basically, since I have like this light skull, but the rest of the canvas is pretty dark, I decided that it would be fun to see if just like doing sort of a reduction method on there would give me an interesting result. At the same time, it'll allow me to like try to do some, since the piece is relatively dark, it'll allow me to paint a bit darker still, because sometimes that's hard to do when it's like a white canvas.
It's interesting how everyone's starting on something different.
Yeah, Divya, what are you doing over there?
I haven't painted with a brush, like drawn with a brush in a long time, so I decided to start with charcoal Grisaille.
Okay.
And then I shall paint. Be on the safe side.
I gotcha. Not a bad idea. I'm just going to experiment today and try some different new ways of getting stuff on there. I usually scrub things around. I'm going to try it today.
What are you experimenting with?
So right now I'm actually taking some of my tone off and kind of blocking in and scrubbing around versus kind of drawing it. I'm just looking for like sort of larger shapes. And
That's cool.
first, see how that works. Here we go. I'm just going to remind everybody, if y'all want reference photos, go to our website. You can submit an email, and they'll email you the reference photos of what we're looking at. Divya has actually been working a lot on some still life stuff, some floral work.
Mm-hmm.
Do you enjoy doing the pieces that you've been working on lately?
Sort of. Like, I just want to get better at painting, like nature outside. I want to get better at plants. Because like the sort of ultimate goal is to like place a figure in the landscape.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like sort of starting small, like getting good at painting flowers and leaves and, you know, little setups to then going big. Is sort of, sort of how I'm trying to approach it. But yeah, flowers are so hard. It's so hard to make them look natural.
Yeah, they
And not
change
cut out.
too quick, so quick too.
Yeah, they change so quickly. And like learning how to make like natural looking brush strokes is also really hard. Or like something that they teach you, I guess. But yeah, definitely a big learning curve. Do you like painting flowers?
You know, I don't do it a lot, but the times that I have done it, I've actually found it really enjoyable. I want to do it more. I mean, it's one of the reasons why we're kind of doing this today is because I don't get to do it that often. And these sessions are like really for having a lot of fun. So, yeah, let's keep it going. You know, for the floral show, I painted several things and I really had a lot of fun. It's kind of like you get the bug on something novel and new and different that you don't normally do. So,
Alex did a few floral paintings for his show, which are really amazing.
oh man, I kind of love all of it. There's something about there's like just two roses, or I don't even know if they're roses. What are they? Those flowers?
Yeah, I think there's some kind of
rose. They, I don't know, man. It's such a simple painting, but it's so beautiful. It's just like, yeah. It kind of inspires you to want to paint flowers when you see that.
Yeah. Totally.
Thanks, guys.
Hope they're roses, because that's what I named it.
Yep. Watch you have some major botanists come in and be like, well, actually, it's this, phylum of this Butifus. It's a lot of the day. It's a scientific name of it. At least you laugh at my jokes. You know, I'm scared. I have a lot of people behind that YouTube screen going,
You actually, from Divya's perspective, can see what you guys are drawing.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, my color's not quite right from what they probably see.
Start to see the skull there, the outline of the grapes.
I gotta make sure next time when we get another mic that my wife is mic'd up. Her voice is much better to listen to.
She has a soothing voice.
She does have a soothing voice.
Oh, guys.
Yeah, I much prefer this piano music over the sound of the chainsaw buzzing in the background.
So what are your favorite, each of you, what are your favorite things about painting still lifes and your least favorite thing about painting still lifes?
So my wife, just in case y'all didn't hear her on the mic, she said, what is our favorite thing about painting still lifes and the least favorite thing about painting still lifes? I think my favorite thing about painting still lifes is it doesn't move on you. I paint a lot of children from life, and I don't know if y'all got the news flash, but little kids are wiggle monsters. No? They'll move all over the place on you. So, Alex, what's your favorite thing about painting still lifes?
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely a big part of it. For me, it was just a big way of learning how to paint. From life, especially getting like accustomed to painting the colors that you see in nature, since getting a live model is kind of hard to do and also hard to paint, so it kind of warms you up for that paint from life.
Yeah, definitely.
What about you, Divya?
Yeah, I agree with what Alex said. And just like, just allowing myself to have time to make it look like the thing, like it's not stressful. And I'm a little bit more meditative than painting a face, or, but like you said, like it sort of makes you build up to that. Yeah. And teaches you like a lot of basic things.
Do you think emotion is something that's challenging to portray about like painting from life with like a model as opposed to like grapes and a goblet?
I'm not sure. Yeah?
Yes, I feel like it's hard to, getting emotion just at all is pretty hard to, even to try and make a still life look emotional.
Yeah, man.
It's a weird thing that doesn't really have a rule book.
That's tall order. I haven't teared up on too many still lifes.
Except mine when you saw it, right?
Yeah, when I saw those roses that aren't roses, I just couldn't. I couldn't hold it in. You know, it's one of those things where I first start going, oh, I'm just gonna like, draw everything in, do the big picture thing, and then like I get all hung up on like the skull. Like, oh, that looks fun to paint. I'm gonna paint that little guy. Yeah. So I'm gonna have to like switch gears here.
Jamie Yates has a question.
Okay.
It says, hi guys and gals, I have a question. Is there standard distance between the model or still life?
Say it again.
Okay. James Yates has a question that says, is there a standard distance between the model or still life you're painting and the surface canvas or board?
Did you guys hear that?
Yeah.
Yes.
The only rule, like when I'm painting figures that I've heard old masters say is it makes sure that at least you are, was it three times the height of your piece, 3 times the distance back. Basically, it's just a perspective thing, so that you don't really kind of create this fishbowl effect. But I know a lot of, at least especially academically, people that are like shooting right up on the model regardless, just because there's not much space and everybody's trying to like get into the space. But I have heard there be a formula on that before. So, but I don't usually use it as a standard. I try to keep my canvas and what my composition is going to be like, I try to keep it close to what I'm seeing for sure. But it's not, it doesn't have to be exact. You know, a lot of people kind of get really caught up in like site size ideas, and because of just because it can be a crutch to you, I try to like not make it perfectly site size, but I do a lot more comparative measurement. But in this case, I'm really practicing just eyeballing things, seeing how close I can get to it.
And Oscar is asking, what is the name of the method Lewis is using?
What is the name of the method that I'm using?
Yeah.
I call it a reduction method, but I'm not sure if that's like the official term or title of it. It's basically I toned my canvas with transparent oxide red and French ultramarine blue, but I usually wipe off more of the tone to like leave it lighter, like Alex and Divia's. But since this was like such a dark painting, and there's only a few lighter moments, I thought how it might be interesting to try to, you know, just reduce away parts of the painting instead, and see, you know, it's kind of an experiment. I mean, I do it a lot in drawing, so, but this is like the first time I've really kind of done it in painting. But I draw a lot in like my demos for portraits, and I draw a lot quite like this. I kind of do like a sort of monochromatic sepia tone-esque type drawing.
And Oscar also wants to know, Divya, are you using a limited palette?
Oh, no, I'm not. I just have a few less colors than Alex and Lois, but no, I'm not.
We have a fellow painter named Jeff Larson who told me one time, he's like, yeah, I have a limited palette with 26 colors. He has colors that go all the way around. I don't know if it was actually 26, but it's quite a few. And he's like, those are all the essential colors that I need in order to mix the proper color. So.
And then Nate's asking, do you guys prefer bristle brushes or a softer airbrush, natural or synthetic hairs?
Somebody else answer that one.
Yeah, since I've been working on panels mostly with like a pretty smooth finish on it, I've been liking softer hair brushes. And I used to really like the mongoose, which was real hair, but now they can't make those anymore, so I've been using kind of a synthetic replacement for that. But I think if I was working on linen, I'd probably try and get back into bristle brushes.
Mm.
So, just depends on the surface.
Yeah, I mean, I use a combination of both. I think, like Alex is saying, it depends on the surface for sure for me. I tend to use, since I work on like a hard panel, I tend to use soft brushes a lot to apply, but then I'll use a hard bristle brush to take away. And I'll also use soft bristle brushes when I'm trying to do like hard lines. And I'll use a hard bristle brush to create soft edges. So, and that's kind of a rule of thumb, but like there's a lot of exceptions to that. So like it depends on if the paint's wet or if it's drier, or if, you know, how you've applied something before you've worked on that certain area will also depend on whether the edge gets soft or hard with the softer hard brush. But I tend to stay closer to soft brushes. What about you, Daniel?
I mean, I know that, like, I think Waterhouse uses wood bristle brushes. Is that right, Alex?
Yeah, I would think so.
So I think eventually, like, I love how he paints, so I would love to use them eventually. But for now, I'm just sticking to, I think they're soft brushes. Yeah, soft brushes for now. But yeah, eventually I'd love to try bristle brushes.
I mean, yeah, they have all good reasons for doing different ones, you know.
Yeah.
And really, honestly, like it's kind of to go in with what Divya is saying. It depends on what you want your painting to look like. You know, you can use hard brushes and apply a whole lot of paint and have this really beautiful sort of industrial style with your real painterly marks. You know, but then you can paint also very brushy, like who's somebody I'm trying to think of. I don't know, you can paint kind of like Jeff Hine, I think, uses a lot of softer brushes. I mean, he uses like fan brushes almost, and he paints heavy, very heavy and painterly.
Yeah, he uses mostly a fan brush.
You know, so
Is
it all depends.
the undertone done using transparent oxide red or brown?
You can use either. My undertone. I'm so sorry.
I don't know if they ever meet for
So Parisa said that somebody was asking, do you use as your underpainting transparent oxide red or brown? You can use both, or either. I am using oxide red mixed with French ultramarine blue. So, and then I just mix those two on the canvas, and I scrub it around, and then I wipe it with a paper towel. And depending on the type of paper towel or the brand, some of them are extremely absorbent, and some of them aren't. And the one I was using today wasn't, and I kind of liked that it wasn't because it left me a whole lot of like interesting things, and left a whole lot of paint on there for me to like pull away. So.
Andy says, thanks for the welcome. I use the same method for my underpainting. It's called subtraction.
Subtraction. Andy, that sounds like a good term for it.
Alex Oscar has a question. Are flat brushes the best option to start a work in the first stage, and what kind?
Well,
Let me go ahead and make sure. Our flat brushes. Say it again, baby. Our flat brushes.
Yeah, so are flat brushes the best option to start a work in the first stage, or what kind? Or in what kind?
Okay. Are they the best option for starting a work, or for stages, or what kind?
Yeah.
For the first stages. So, I mean, I think the way I've been starting a painting recently is kind of after drawing a rough kind of blocking stage where I try and fill the whole canvas or the whole thing with color, and then let it dry and paint on top of that. And usually I'll use a flat brush for the first layer, which is the Eclipse series from Rosemary, Eclipse Long Flats. And that's mainly because they just lay the paint on better, whereas in the synthetic browns that I use don't lay the paint on as well. They kind of take the paint off if there's nothing like underneath it. So I tend to do it with flats first to kind of lay down the foundation, and I'll go on with rounds and really kind of turn the form and get into those small shapes.
That's good. It's good info there, right there. Take that to the bank.
Back to the undertone, Mustafa wants to know, why do you use transparent oxide red with ultramarine to get the darkest dark? Why not raw or burnt umber, or do you use them mainly to mute midtones?
Oh, cool. That's a good question. You most certainly could use raw umber. I think the reason that I use two paints colors that are warm and cool that actually neutralize each other, because those are complementing colors. So those two colors, when you mix them, they actually can create a really nice neutral. But in the same process, you get a bit of variation in your undertone. So it's not like the whole thing is perfectly red or perfectly blue. There's like this slight vibration of variance in it. And that's kind of why I like to paint with those versus just putting a brown on there. And it's not my darkest dark. It is sort of a really dark mid-tone. So like it definitely is going into the dark area. I'm going to make it darker though as we move on. So that's a really good question. Keep them coming.
Oscar says, thanks, Alex.
Yeah, man. Oscar is a really big family name. I have my great-grandfather, aunts, not aunts. If I had an aunt named Oscar, that'd be weird. But I definitely have several uncles and cousins all named Oscar. It's a big, big family name. You know, the one interesting thing about not having a live model versus painting still life is you don't have to take as many breaks. So when somebody's tired, yell out. So everyone, make sure that if y'all have anything y'all want to see us like paint in the future, you know, if there's something that sounds interesting or fun, you know, you can also put that in. It doesn't have to be a question. It can most certainly be a comment. So, or if there's like some sort of painting technique or some sort of topic you would want us to talk about.
So Nate says, do you have a preferred surface, linen or smooth panel?
So the question was, do you have a preferred surface, linen or smooth panel? I actually have gotten really used to painting on panel because I make them myself with using aluminum composite material, which I don't know if Alex and Vivi, I think they're painting on masonite maybe. But basically it's basically two thin veneers of aluminum that are sandwich a piece of plastic. And it's really cheap to buy, and it's the longevity of your painting, they're very archival because they don't have they're not susceptible to humidity. So you can buy it in like large sheets from a sign supply store that's in your town, and then paint on those. So I've gotten used to painting on those. However, in this instance, I just so happen to have been down in Arizona, and I have a dear friend Emily, who owns Raymar panels in over there, and I told her I wanted to buy some panels from her. And today I'm actually painting on a Raymar panel with Clausen's 13 double primed linen on it. So they make fabulous panels, and I've painted on them for a very long time and love them. So whenever I'm not painting with my own, I'm definitely using probably a Raymar panel.
And then, hello there asks, can you give me some tips on how to paint fog? I want to paint a foggy forest.
Oh. That's good. Alex, you
Can you?
Okay.
I don't think we're...
Well, I've only painted it once. I was doing a portrait, and basically it was on a foggy day. She was sitting by a window that had a really foggy day in the background. I think the two things that I would consider if you want it to be like really a foggy forest, the first thing is to make sure that your top is lighter than your bottom. And I know that kind of like it's like, oh, well, that makes sense, but when you're actually painting on it, at first you kind of will paint all of your fog sort of the same value, but the light's coming from the sky, and the fog is filtering that light as it goes downward. So even at your treetops in the far background, if they're foggy, are going to be just a tiny bit difference in value from the actual fog light itself. They're going to be so compressed to the lights. And that's going to make it feel even more foggy, where you almost barely see it. So when you're actually up close painting it, it actually feels really, you almost have to feel it versus see it, because it's just so subtle. When you step back, you'll see the subtle difference. That's something that I found when I was painting like a foggy day with trees. The other thing is that like just scumble a lot over your painting. Try to like add glazes of like light on top of your painting. Like paint the trees and paint everything. Then you can like do successions of glazing, or stumbling, and that will help it kind of build up to like those subtle changes while still having like really strong structure in your trees.
Divya, what you were doing just a second ago, can you explain the mirror?
Oh yeah.
Here, I will give you a mic first. Do you have a mic?
No, I can just talk really loud if you want.
Yeah.
When we went to Nerdrum's place, me and Alex, in Norway, he used the mirror like literally every 10 minutes. And I thought that was really interesting. And it's basically to like sort of tap into the right side of your brain and like see things in a different way. Yeah, I find it really helpful, except it's very easy to become like addicted to looking at it once you look at it. But it's really, really helpful for like just seeing things in proportion better and like drawing mistakes and stuff. So yeah, I was just like looking at my drawing and looking at the setup. And I definitely saw a few errors that I might have not seen if I stared at it for too long.
Does it matter what size mirror?
No. Sometimes people have like a big mirror behind them or a small handheld mirror. Yeah, no, it doesn't matter. Whatever works.
And then Jihu wants to know, can you guys touch on simplification? How do you determine what to leave out and what to include? Should I paint exactly what I see when I squint?
That's a good question. I feel like I asked Alex that question the other day.
Yeah, but it's just, I don't know. Yeah, squinting is a good place to start when deciding what to leave out. It depends. I mean, with a portrait, there's like certain features and kind of indents on the face and stuff that I will end up leaving out, because I think about kind of like when I'm having a conversation with a person or I see a person, there's things that I don't notice when I see them, but maybe if I took a photo of them, I would then notice those things. So if I'm not paying attention to them when I'm looking at them, then maybe I should leave them out. But when it comes to just drawing, squinting really helps to just see the main light and dark patterns so you don't get so caught up in making and accidentally making like half tones look like shadows and stuff like that. But I feel like you have a good answer, Louis.
No, I think everything you said really makes a lot of sense. I mean, that's one of the hardest things, I think, as an artist, is making the decisions of what to omit and what to keep in, especially if you're working from a photo. That's one of the dangers of working from a photo, is that it's really difficult to, when it's from life, it's so much easier to be able to see what to omit because your eye already does kind of the work for you, because the thing is so large. But with a photo, like, you can zoom in and continue to like zoom in on something till like get like all the way down to that like tiny little detail. So that will, by working from life, you actually help yourself learn to what to omit, what feels more natural to what you would see in the world.
Do they teach squinting at GCA? Is that what you encourage?
It's definitely like encouraged. I don't know if they necessarily go heavily into teaching squinting because so much of it is form foundational stuff that it's more of like almost like feeling the turns and things on your canvas and using logic. So, but squinting is most certainly something that is a part of the program.
Alvina Perez says, I'm a plein air painter. Do you think you can do a demo before the season is over? Thanks for doing a great job.
For a plein air painting, is that what it was? Well, here the only thing. So the question was that she's a plein air painter, and was wondering what was her name?
It's Alvino Perez.
Alvino Perez, and she was wondering if we would ever do a demo plein air painting before the season's done. The only problem with plein air painting is that we still don't quite have the technology yet to be able to take these live streams outside. So we're working on it, but it's at this moment we still are incapable of doing that. We can go and film and record from outside, but we can't stream from the internet quite yet from outside. So stay tuned. I think eventually we will be able to get there, but at the moment we're not quite at that kind of spot yet. Great question though. We really hope to.
Is there a learning curve from coming from acrylic going to oil-based paints?
Guys, how about somebody else tackle that?
I did one acrylic painting when I was in high school of me as a Cyclops. So, and my skin was blue and my hair was orange, so I don't know much about acrylic painting.
That was great.
But
Yeah, I think so.
Well, I did yet again in middle school. I did more acrylic painting, and I wouldn't say there's a whole lot of difference. I mean, the richness is there's definitely a fear from acrylic painters, because I remember having this fear that there's so much of a learning curve between the two, you know. But just as a little bit of a token of encouragement, I don't think there's much difference. The only difference really is that the solvent is different, like what you use to actually clean your brushes and to dilute your paint, because you're using water in acrylic. The other major difference, obviously, is that the paint doesn't dry. And so, but that's an advantage. That's not like a hard learning curve. That actually is like oh my gosh, this is so much easier to be able to like mix my colors So that part's fun. So I'd say just embrace it, jump in, because you will have to learn new things. But it's not, the biggest fear is just trying to jump into the medium. It's a good question.
What do you prime the ACP with?
The ACM.
They said ACP.
Okay, I think that they meant the aluminum composite material. So if I'm not answering the right question, just let me know. But I usually prime my panels with lead alkyd ground made by Natural Pigments or Rublev company. They're the same company, Natural Pigments and Rublev. And they do make like a regular lead white ground, but the lead alkyd ground dries within 24 hours. The regular lead ground doesn't dry for like a week and a half. So I don't recommend, especially if you're starting out to like prime your panels, I don't recommend using the lead ground. I would go for the lead alkyd ground. And I roll it on with one of those sponge rollers, like a sponge brush, but like in a roller form. I find that is really helpful for applying it. So, and I use sandpaper to score the panel.
From your view, what type of art sells the best or does best in popularity? Realism, surreal, natural, etc.
Yeah.
I'm not sure I understand. What is
Says-
most pop?
What
What
art sells the
Or
best
sells the best?
or does best in popularity?
Well, I would say that the normal person, if they walk into I don't know, because did abstract art ever?
Was that one of the options I
No,
gave?
realistic, surreal, natural, etc. I guess maybe.
Yeah, I don't know.
Well, I don't know if I know the answer to that, but I can take a stab at suspicion or a guesstimation. I think if you're going to paint realistically, that I have found that portraits and people, there's at least in Southern culture, a lot of people they sell pretty well, because if you can paint somebody to look like somebody really well, there's still a market for that. There's still a tradition, and I've definitely made a living off of doing that. But as far as if it's surreal, I don't think surrealism is very popular right now. Maybe different types of surrealism that are more just contemporary painting, but like if you were to take the traditional form of surrealism, like Dali style, I think that's there's definitely people out there doing it. I don't know how well it sells, but subject matter, if you are a realist painter, I think everyone would probably say that's in the gallery world, don't paint bones and skulls, which is exactly what we're doing. If you want to sell it. So I would say that doesn't sell well, typically. And I would also say that at least in the US, figure doesn't, unless you're pretty known, figure has a hard time selling nude figure. But I think people sell pretty well. You know, that are in like an environment or something. I think that they do decently well. But modern, I think, kind of holds the ticket, because if you can, you know, obviously we're not modern painters, but right now I just think that like interior decorators and designers are always looking for something as long as the color harmony is very similar to what is in style in people's homes right now. I think you do pretty well. But I really think realism's coming back. I think I see it everywhere now, and I think people are really getting back into it. So
Jihu wants to know, what is the most important lesson you all have learned that has helped to push your work and understanding of how to paint to the next level? Any memorable aha moments?
oh man, these are some great questions, guys. Keep them coming. Profound moments, Alex, Divya.
I remember a Richard Schmidt quote that was, painting is just putting the right shape of the right color in the right spot. And for some reason for me that made it a lot less mystical.
Oh, that's cool.
And it sort of helped me, and then you sort of break that down. Well, the right spot obviously is like drawing, and then so learning how to draw is learning how to put something in the right spot. And then like learning color and value and the shape of your brush stroke to match what you're painting. I remember, I think it was in the Jeremy Lipking DVD, he talks about how everything is like relative to what's on your canvas. And you're not just like trying to copy the exact color value of what you're seeing, but whatever you kind of lay down, you then compare off of what you have based on what's happening. So if, let's say, a general flesh tone I see, there it's a little bit more red, I make my flesh tone a little bit more red. And then, oh, over there it's a little bit more green, so I make it a little bit more green, but that isn't exactly an exact replica, but all of the relationships are the same, so it reads as real and accurate. So yeah, I guess those are two things.
Yeah.
I think something that was really profound for me was, I think two things that like I remember when I was in the Grand Central Atelier program. Was the first one was like in a color theory class, and they were explaining hue, value, and chroma, and they were saying, you know, that as things face towards the light, and there's people that, you know, have different schools of thought on this, but I kind of adhere to the one that GCA teaches, which is as things are facing more towards the light, they get more powerful in their color and more true to the actual color of the thing, the object itself. And then as they go away from the light, they neutralize in color. And then they start talking about hue, value, and chroma, which is value being light to dark, hue being the actual color of the thing. Is it green, blue, purple, red, you know, and then chroma, which is the intensity of the color. So how like saturated is the color with that color. And then them explaining how to use that for the illusion of your eye. That was very profound for me. That was, if y'all want to learn more about that, just look up hue, value, chroma. Just Google it. You'll see there'll be like more information than you can handle on the matter. But that was a very profound thing. That and a thing called simultaneous contrast, and realizing what was tricking your eye to making something look real or not real. Learning those two things was incredibly helpful in my painting career. A real aha moment.
And mine would be, well, I think one thing too with the color is like, don't just like tunnel vision yourself when you're mixing color, and also with value and everything. Like, don't just like compare color when you're mixing it, and like, you know, what's next to it, what's around it, what's the difference. Like really helped me see color properly. It wasn't about just like the individual things you're seeing. And also just like knowing that don't be hard on yourself if you don't get something straight away. Like your brain, especially when you're like sort of at the beginning, your brain might not really understand it yet, but it will, like, you will get concepts the more you like practice, I guess. Like, you're not going to get everything straight away, and that's something I've sort of learned the past year. Yeah, you won't get it straight away. I mean, you might, but, you know, just like practice, and then you'll have like loads of aha moments with what people have told you or critiqued you. Yeah, but definitely like comparing everything, and also seeing things in shapes. Really trying to like, that was a big thing, because I'm trying to focus on faces a lot, and just like really trying to see things in abstract shapes and not features and lines. Yeah.
Yeah, it's good.
And I would agree with what Alex said about Richard Schmid. Sometimes he puts things just really simply, and you're like, oh yeah, it's that simple.
Yeah, it makes you remember you're not like performing heart surgery.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just a painting.
Yeah.
If you put the right color in the right spot, then you can make a masterpiece. So just figure out how to do that.
This is to Alex, since Alex is talking. Oscar wants to know, of the American artists, which has been the most influential in your work and why?
Well, I'd say in the beginning it was definitely Jeremy Lipking and Richard Schmid were two painters that I was looking at a lot, and then when I was working on still lifes a lot, Michael Klein was a big influence, and he was teaching a lot of workshops on the East Coast, so I was able to learn from him, stuff like that. And then out of artists that are dead, I don't even pay attention to. It's sad, but I should probably pay attention to which ones are American. I just assume they're all, well, a bunch of them are like French or something.
Mustafa wants to know, what is the exact importance of underpainting, and can we compensate it with a la prima technique if we put a lump of mid-tone color first, then paint the darks over?
Yeah, I mean, you can. Sargent had a similar technique to that, where he would paint all the midtones and then keep going from there. And I mean, that I wouldn't call that an underpainting necessarily. I would just consider that like you're applying a certain medium tone in order for you to like then be able to understand the range of lights and darks. An underpainting, I mean, what I'm doing now is I'm probably going way too much into the underpainting than I probably should for a one session thing. But I would say that I usually paint indirectly, so I'm usually using the layer underneath that's dry, and that usually is going to help tell me what I should be doing with the next layer, which is indirect painting. And what you're talking about, which is auto prima, is much more direct painting. So I don't necessarily think you have to, I mean, underpainting, I think for an auto prima painter is almost just like drawing, you know, just getting everything down, and then like you said, you're putting a mid-tone down, and then like being able to work your value range from there. So weirdly enough, I guess you would consider this still auto prima. What I'm doing now, even though like I'm kind of using sort of indirect painting techniques to do it.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. There's a painter on Instagram. Ramon
Oh,
Hurtado.
yeah, Ramon. Yeah.
Yeah, he posts a lot of like academic drawings and paintings from the 19th century, and he goes into the technique, and most of it has no underpainting. And he'll post like unfinished ones where it's just a fully rendered head and like shoulders, and then everything else is just like an outline of a drawing. And how they just like painted one thing at a time and just went and completely finished it, and then the next part and the next part. And those things look extremely old masterly, so yeah, it all works.
And that's how they taught us at GCA, kind of finish as you go, moving forward. So the great thing about, I guess, painting is that there are just so many different directions and ways you can do it. I mean, look at the difference between all three of our paintings and how we're approaching the exact same subject matter, you know.
So Divya, oh my Livia says, yay, Divya's painting. Love to watch me a lady painter around my age.
Oh, there you go. Holla.
Aww.
That's awesome.
What was the name?
Oh my Livia.
Livia and Divya.
Yeah, Livia and Divya. And then someone says, what are some practices that help keep you focused on the whole instead of working from spot to spot on small details?
Well, that one should be directed towards me. So I just feel like I'm working on all sorts of small details. Well, larger brushes will help. You know, if you want to like think of the whole, then it'll force you to, for sure. So that's one thing. Guys,
Wait, the question was, how did you stop yourself from?
focusing on like smaller details and like, you know, get more into the bigger picture of things.
I guess when you just like look at it and you're like, oh, okay, something looks off, then you're like, okay, now I need to like look at the bigger picture. I guess it's like constant, like looking at like big shapes and small shapes.
Yep. Also, I would say walking back a whole lot and trying to like squint at least helps me, like, you know, get back into that mindset. You have to force yourself. You know, people that are like me, they're very detail oriented people. You really have to like force yourself pretty hard to do this, to not get into the details. Because I'm always trying to like force myself back out of the details.
Alex, can you show the camera your mirror?
Oh yeah. Maybe I can see the camera in the mirrors.
Hey, there's the camera.
Yeah, this is probably a bigger mirror than I've I've seen most people use. But I like it. But I think that's a really good point about forcing yourself. I think that is such a big part of becoming better at painting or just improving is you have to understand that you have to force yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes forcing yourself is not what you want to do.
Yeah.
Isn't like forcing yourself to like just do it.
To do it or to try and simplify or try out the technique that you wonder why you don't paint like that.
Yeah.
And just, it has to kind of be forced.
It's uncomfortable.
Yeah.
You know. That's a really good point. It's so funny because you would think that like just saying forced makes you is evident or it's a given that you have to like make yourself do that thing because that's what it really means. But at the end of the day, no. I mean, you really don't want to do it, and you've really got to make yourself try.
Yeah, because you're forcing yourself because it's not easy and you want to be better at it.
Right.
What's some of your painting goals like for the year?
Well, I have quite a few commissions I'm trying to finish out. But I have 3 paintings that I'm working on. One that's almost done, 2 that are literally in preliminary sketch stage. That I would love to get done by about end of January. And so my goal is to get those finished. And that's aside from just my portrait work that I do. Just paintings that I want to do for me, paintings that I want to do for saying something versus it just being someone else's face, you know? So I'd say that's like one of my bigger goals. It's funny because like as an artist, when you're doing it as a career, you have orders and other things that pull you away from sometimes the reason that you got in it in the first place. And I'm super thankful that I get to paint, well, I wouldn't say every day, but I get to paint almost every day. But at the same time, I have to like protect the time to like actually work on something that is not just for somebody else, but for me, for the whole reason I've got in it.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. How do you like sort of stay inspired when you're doing commissions?
Oh, that's a great question. So for anyone that didn't hear that, it's how do you stay inspired while you're doing commissions? So a couple of the things I do is that I treat every commission as an opportunity to learn a new thing. And I'll also treat every commission as an opportunity to, if I'm influenced by like a particular old master painting, sometimes like I will start doing like shots and sittings that are very similar to that particular old master and like try to mimic the lighting and try to like, do something that's different from him, but at the same time, try out why is it that I love that painting so much of that old master, and see if I can bring in some of those same qualities into the portrait work that I'm doing now. So I'll always have like an old master painting up, or several usually. Usually it's about 4 or 5, with almost every painting that I'm painting that is just like a portrait of mine, because there might be a color harmony I'm trying to shoot for that's similar. There might be a composition that I'm trying to shoot for that's similar. It's never always exactly alike. It's more of like, there's a great composition thing here. I love the skin tones there. I love the color harmony of this one. I love the background of this other one. So usually that's what it's all about. So that helps keep me inspired.
Yeah.
That's a good question.
And you like your podcast books?
Oh yeah, I listen to a lot of audiobooks, a whole lot.
Yeah.
So that is what usually keeps me seated and keeps me focused, because I can't listen to anything that is deeply insightful. I used to have several philosophy podcasts, and I just found myself like almost tired and like would want to sit down and just listen versus paint.
Yeah.
So I can't. It has to be something that's digestible, but which podcasts usually fit that bill pretty easily.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So Mustafa has another question. I find indirect painting is more difficult to me than alla prima. And the second layer, when I add paint, it's like dry brush. And if I oil out before, the paint is so transparent like glazes. What's the solution?
Yeah, you have to kind of find a happy medium. I think that I do paint quite thin, and I think that's part of me painting indirectly. I think that you have to be okay with really like changing whatever layer you had underneath if you're like going to be painting thicker over on top. But the oiling out aspect, I would say a couple of things. One, you can use oleo gel, and there's also some silica type materials you can put into it that allow for it to be a heavier impasto. So it allows for you to be able to paint on top, and you can oil out with oleo gel, and it still will give you a little bit more of an impasto feeling than just oiling out with regular oil. Alex, it's probably a better question for you because you do a good job in indirect painting of adding heavier layers on top without it getting too thin on you.
Yeah, I feel like my first layer is decently heavy. Sometimes I purposely build up my first layer even heavier in the lights and then paint on top of it. But with the oiling out, that sounds like you're maybe doing it wrong. Like, you just need to oil out enough that your sunken in parts are not sunken in anymore, and then you can almost wipe it off. Because if what usually is kind of dry brushy then becomes glazes once you paint, if it's oiled out, then yeah, there's probably too much oil, and you're also probably not using enough paint, because maybe you're thinking about the second layer too differently from the first layer. So you're thinking of it maybe in thinner paint, because it's a second layer, but I mean, there are times where my second layer can almost completely cover the first layer with new paint.
Yeah.
With just like, and you can even see how I was like painting this background, there's like stuff underneath that comes through, and just those little moments is what kind of helps it. So I would say it's almost a way of painting alla prima and then letting it dry and painting alla prima on top of it again, but making the shape smaller. It's good stuff.
Mm.
But if it feels like dry brushing, you're definitely not using enough paint. Yeah. And usually, like, let's say I'm painting a person, and I have, from the first layer, I think the forehead is just perfect, I don't need to touch it. If I'm painting into the eye, and that eye is turning out from the shadow into the light of the forehead, I'm going to need to remix that forehead color so that I have paint to mix into. Now, I don't need to recover the whole forehead, but right next to where it's turning out, so that I can then like turn the form into the first layer. So I am repainting things. It's not this just kind of dry brush into the second layer.
That's good.
just made the same mistake. I just tried to paint a portrait in a grisaille first before doing the color, because I just wanted to try that out. And I think I even read, because I'm reading Solomon J. Solomon, how he does it, and I think he even says, you do the grisaille, and then with a whole new fresh layer of paint covering the whole grisaille, you do the second layer. And part of me was like, no, I spent so much time in that grisaille. I'm not going to, let it completely disappear, and I'm struggling right now, so it's probably a similar situation.
Yeah, it's tough. It's tough, tough scenario. I don't know. I mean, I'm sure every artist has like struggles that are like that. That is, still trying to figure some of that out. I know that I definitely have that struggle of it sometimes painting too thin because I just am a thin painter. So I feel I really hear that question. It's a really good question because I think that a lot of people are thinking that exact thought.
So initially in painting, what do you guys feel like was one of the biggest challenges for you guys to overcome?
I'm still overcoming them, but just the whole I'm not good enough thing, oh, it's going to take so long and time and stuff, and just get rid of the emotions that you have, and just be passionate about getting better and problem solving, and sort of becoming obsessed with just wanting to get better, and do your research and watch videos and get critiques, and just be open to always sort of getting criticized, because you're definitely going to learn faster if you are open to all of that, you'll definitely improve. I would say, but that's I don't know, that's something that I guess I've learned. Yeah. And learning how to draw is everything, really. I think that's a big thing.
Yeah. Learning how to draw is, I think, would be a lot of people's most difficult challenge.
Yeah. I'm constantly realizing that, and I think Alex also says and what we both say, okay, we really need to learn how to draw. It needs to be easier.
Yeah, 100%. I'm struggling so hard right now in drawing. And I feel like I'm a professional painter or whatever. I should know how to draw or feel comfortable doing it, but I'm just not. So that's something I really wish I did more of, or practiced it with intent to get better at that skill alone. Because obviously I was drawing my paintings, but it would just be drawing and painting, and then paint the painting for a month, forget how to draw again.
That's really good.
You forgot how you drew.
And always ask questions. Sometimes someone will explain something and I'll be wait, what do you I don't know, understand what you're saying. And just if you don't get it, ask questions.
There's no such thing as a bad question, right?
Right.
That's right. No such thing as a bad question.
So speaking of questions, Jamie Gates says, have you found that using lead oil ground minimized the sinking and sinking in, especially if you're working on a painting slowly for a long time?
It's definitely advertised that way. I think that some of the paints that I use are just have such a low viscosity to them that it's just hard for them not to sink in. I use a lot of like raw umber and ivory black and things like that that tend to sink in quite a lot, no matter what ground you're using. I bet you it does, but I've been painting on it for so long, I don't know if I can compare it to what I've been painting on in the past, you know. So maybe y'all could speak into that better.
I can compare it to one thing. I know that when I've taught workshops or even like Greer, the person we know, she would paint on like the just crappy lit canvas that you can get from an art store. That's just cheap and you're just thinking, oh, I'm just practicing whenever I'll use this. But it's literally impossible for me to make a good painting on those things. It just like soaks in the color.
Oh, yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah, so I'll have some students when I'm teaching and I'm trying to paint on their painting, I'm like, I don't understand, I can't even actually mix the color I'm seeing. And that's also like the quality of their paints as well. But those things really just, it almost just like grabs the color from the back of the canvas.
Yeah.
So compared to like a typical kind of cheap thing that you would buy already pre-made, I would say absolutely.
There's definitely some gesso board that I've bought before that would just sink so poorly that I was just like, I don't even understand. I don't even know what to do here. So
Yeah, painting's hard enough. You always have to deal with that. And then if you don't know anything else, you think that you're just screwing up, doing it wrong.
yeah.
You're
Good.
laughing at the song.
So I see it says these are some good paintings.
Yeah, we like him. You can keep commenting. Whose idea was it for us to paint grapes, huh?
Yeah, I'm just about to try and mix green.
Oh, you're doing color? Yeah, I was just about to think about color.
Use a tip. Don't do it.
No,
What color are you mixing over there, Didia?
I'm mixing a string for the skull. So just getting prepared on my palette.
Huh.
Michael Klein is like really awesome at explaining like how to prepare your palette, like how your palette's like an instrument and you like need to have it organized, sort of before you paint.
How do you have yours organized?
We're just like mixing a sort of string beforehand, getting like a value stream, yeah, of like, and colors of like a rough idea, so that you're not like mixing. Well, at least this is how I began to paint, and then I got shown the right way. Was like little pools of paint are kind of confusing. You know, that's what you sort of see a lot of beginners do, and it's a little bit unorganized.
Mm.
But I think some people might paint like that, but it's sort of like, yeah, doesn't make sense. Because I think GCA teaches you like streams, right, Logan?
Yeah, they do, because they talk about how important value is if you can get value right. So usually when they're talking about streams, they're talking about value, you know, sort of the light to dark. So, but yeah, they're pretty big on that. You know, just because it can really make or break your painting to looking real.
Yeah.
I mean, it's probably why I spent so much time working on underpainting, because I'm just like, you know, value's important. You know, getting that, you know, understood a little bit, and then moving on. I'm sure there's some people out there, especially Michael's watching right now, he's like, move on, Lewis.
Those are some real round grapes, Liz.
Let's see if I can make them rounder. I think it's time for me to like branch out and actually put some color down.
So our seat says, I'm watching this live stream at midnight whilst having my dinner.
Oh man!
I hope he's also having a glass of wine.
Well, bon
Or
appetit.
she. No, he.
Bon appetit to your dinner. Hope it's good. I mean, that's such a beautiful thing about YouTube, you know, it allows for you to be able to just access and be able to connect with your audience all over the place. And that's one thing I love about it. It's really, really pretty incredible.
The beauty of technology.
Truly. You know, something I know that y'all probably can't see much of my palette, but something that I heard a while back that was like a game changer, like a really awesome thing for me to learn, was whenever you have like glare on your paint, either on your palette or on your canvas from the light source, if you want to use like a fan brush or a very soft brush, you can paint in the direction that the light's coming towards your canvas, and it will sort of eliminate the brush glare that you're getting from your brushes. And when I tried that, I was like, whoa! Yeah. So, a little nugget for all those people out there.
Or a little grape.
A little grape of knowledge.
Have all of you guys taken an anatomy class?
Ooh. So the question was, have all of you guys taken an anatomy class?
No.
So in college, I took like an anatomy sort of physiology class, and at GCA, you took a structure class, and you learned about anatomy in the structure class. So yes, I have. And it is important. You do learn a lot of logical things that can help you with your painting of the figure. But I would say it allows for you to have the knowledge to like have an extra tool for investigation of what's wrong with your painting. You know, and it allows for you to like think in space a little bit better about how the figure has a three-dimensional form. But if you just have really good skills, drawing skills of proportion and shape and scale, I wouldn't say it's necessary. But, so just a thought there.
Yeah, I haven't taken one, but I actually plan on taking one. Because I'd love to get better at it. I feel like it's one little thing that I'm missing.
Ruby says, it's nearly 1 a.m. in London, and I'm in bed watching this. It's taking my mind off of Brexit just a little bit.
That's awesome. Man, so sorry about Brexit. It's tough. Priest and I have very close British friends, and very dear to us. And they talk about their frustrations with it all the time. Thanks for tuning in at 1 a.m.
Yeah, Mustafa says it's 1:47 a.m. in Egypt.
That is just awesome.
Egypt. Awesome.
You guys are awesome for hanging out with us that late at night.
Mm-hmm. Divya, who's been an artist that's been a big influence on you?
Definitely on Nerdrum and Waterhouse and Almatadama. I would say those three, definitely. But yeah, I think on Nerdrum definitely was like a big reason why I wanted to start oil painting in the first place. Yeah.
What about you?
Oh, and of course. And the man to my left.
My beloved husband.
I'm very grateful. He's taught me a lot and just shown me a lot of painters as well who I did not know. Yeah.
What about you, Lewis?
Oh man, it's so hard to talk about. There's I would say I love a lot of Russian painters. Repin would be one that comes right to mind. Kramskoy I love. Some of his pieces. I would also say there's a lot of naturalist painters out there that I really love, sort of their tonal harmonies that they create in their work. I mean, because I'm a portrait painter, I love Sargent and Rembrandt and Zorn. I definitely love Almatadama. I think he's an incredible painter. Also like him just because of some of the stories I've read of him. He's just kind of a really cheery guy, but he was also like kind of a big businessman, but also, you know, he just seemed very positive and happy, and I kind of like to aspire to do that myself. So it's good to hear people that were kind of like that. And Da Vinci supposedly was very similar. You know, he was quite a charming fellow. So I mean, that's just to say a few. I mean, it's like every day. I'm almost overloaded with like people that I love their work. It's kind of almost hard to like know which ones you should want to be your influences, because some of them are just like so far from each other, but you love how they do stuff, you know.
So Mustafa has a fun idea. He says, I have an idea for the next live stream. Maybe you paint someone wearing traditional costumes from his country and you all listen to traditional songs.
Oh, well, isn't that cool? Yeah, it sounds like a lot of fun. Well, then either, Mustafa, you're going to have to send us some traditional clothing, or we're going to have to find ourselves an Egyptian close by who can help us out with that.
Or we could do Indian traditional clothing.
Yeah. And I don't know if you know this, Mustafa, but my wife is Persian. She's half Persian, so we can probably figure something out. Somebody over in the Middle East area. But I love that idea. We're also thinking that, you know, Halloween's coming up. We should do either a Halloween themed thing, or we should also do like you know, a fall sort of harvest and what is in what plants are available and in season. And you're thinking hard about the painting. It's hard to like even remember words. In season was hard for me to remember.
Alex SV wants to know, when approaching backgrounds in your paintings for your show, the walls, fence, etc., how do you approach those to make them finished but without making them too much of a focus within the image?
Yeah. The way that I paint backgrounds, I don't know, it's something that I feel like I go back and forth with, because one painting I think I painted the background so awesome, and then the next painting I'll like try and do it the way I thought I did it last time. It doesn't quite have the same effect, but I feel like I try and get generally the color I'm seeing and a lot of paint of it on my brush, and then just kind of scrub it like kind of vigorously on the canvas so that it's kind of laying down paint and picking up paint at the same time, so you see some of the background popping through. Yeah, how to not make it such a like standout point in the piece. I guess if you're just really kind of, if the background's quite flat and you're focusing on like rendering and form modeling and stuff on the actual subjects of the painting, it'll kind of, you should fall back, but yeah. I think that helps.
Yeah, that was good. It's funny you were starting to talk about that. I was thinking about starting to paint the background, but then I didn't want to like everybody to be like, "Oh, I gotta try that."
Yeah, it's kind of, the only bad thing is that once I do a background that looks good, it's kind of like based on getting it right the first time.
Mm-hmm.
So then it puts a lot of pressure on just the freaking background of the painting and laying the paint the right way.
Yeah.
Jamie Yates wants to know, do you use any solvent at this stage, Alex?
Well, since this is a alla prima thing and I have and I'm using an Edge Pro gear or whatever, I'm using liquid. But at a first stage, I usually probably just use my typical medium, which is just half terp or Gamsol and half linseed oil. And if I'm painting, maybe when I'm doing that, I'll try and paint with lead white because the lead white dries faster. If I'm worried about painting on that specific part the next day. But yeah, usually just half linseed, half terp.
That's good.
If it's like some pigments, if it's the first pass and it's definitely going to be something I want to paint on tomorrow and I know my pigments dry really slow, then maybe I'll just use straight terp. So I kind of will have 2 cups out, with one with just terp and the other with half, just in case I need to make that decision.
So Divya, Jihu wants to know, you've made such incredible progress over the last year. What do you feel has been the most helpful in you achieving a higher quality of work? Any tips on study regimens?
That's great. Thank you for saying that. That's really nice. Well, there's a few things. I would say it's like, well, firstly, I'm surrounded by people who are better than me, for lack of a better word, at painting. So I'm always like wanting to improve. Like and I think that's like encouraged me to just like keep stepping up. But also like I'm always looking at paintings and like wanting and like trying to ask myself like, why is mine, not as good as this, and how can I improve it? And like, I'm not satisfied, and so I'm like constantly trying to make it better. But I'm always getting critiques as well. So I would say like having a mentor, like if you can, or a teacher is actually like really important, or like having tutorial DVD workshops is just like really important. Just like trying to learn how to properly paint is like really important, because I really didn't know how to paint. Like I really and I would just sort of like wing it for a little bit, and like learning how to properly do things, how to properly color mix, and like how to see things, and like people telling you that, whether it's like in person or DVDs, is like you like have so many revelations, and then you're like, oh, okay, it's like it's not that, it's like hard, but like you just have to know how to do it, and like practicing like every day is definitely a huge thing. Like just practice like when you can. I would say like they're the biggest things, but it's really hard because like I came from Australia and they don't have like very good ateliers or anything like that, so like I understand like what it's like to like not be, if you're not in a country or whatever that doesn't like offer that, or they're too expensive as well. Like I would say like sort of like also how Alex learned through like workshop, like going to workshops and like absorbing the most you can from it. I would say that.
I'd also say that Divya probably paints more than like I even did when I was at her stage. So the fact of just getting up and making yourself paint every single day,
Yeah, that's huge.
like
Very
basically
hard worker.
like 9 to 7 every day.
Yeah.
Very dedicated.
Thank you. But like don't give up.
It's good. It's good advice.
Yeah, like I was like, I don't know. But I just really think the first sentence of just like learning how to paint properly, learning how to do everything right. This is how you set up your palette. This is how you draw, like, and I mean, I know that's really obvious, but, and like accepting like, oh, maybe I need to use more paint. And like, oh, maybe I need to practice that thing. If that makes any sense. Yeah.
Yeah, it's good.
But definitely practice, and every single painting you will improve. Even and like spend like a month on a painting to try and make it look exactly like the thing. Yeah.
Yeah, let's do that.
So I think this is a generalized question. Source Seat wants to know, do you work out the compositions first or jump straight into the painting?
I work out the compositions first. I think, at least when it comes to this kind of thing, if I'm setting up a still life or something, I'm thinking about composition the whole time. So, but if I'm talking about composition on my canvas, yes, I mean, because, well, it would be hard to cut things down. Speaking of, I don't know if this is the best composition in the world, but it's
Same with mine.
yeah, but it didn't like come without thought. I definitely was thinking about it when I was putting it together. But I should have probably, scale-wise, I should have probably made it higher where it could come up here. So there might be something I'll be cropping on this bad boy. So I say that, but then I also know that sometimes we, in our minds, we don't have the perfect vision, right? So, but that's not to say that you can't crop your panel. So, a lot of people I know paint on loose canvas for that reason alone. Is they're like, how often do I get the composition exactly right? And that gives them the liberty and the carte blanche to actually go back and try it differently.
So we have a question for Alex from Mark. It says, what is your experience of painting on lead primed ACM panel versus lead primed linen on panel or stretched?
Okay, yeah. So lead primed panel or lead primed linen. Well, obviously the only thing different then is just the weave of the canvas, and I actually somewhat prefer a weave, just because you can do some interesting stuff with scraping that you can't do on a panel. But it's not that much different. It really, because I think I use a fine enough weave canvas that it's not extremely different. So yeah, I can't really say much on the difference of them.
That's good.
So both Alex and Lewis have had experience with teaching. Divya, do you think that you would ever want to teach workshops?
Yeah, I mean, one day, like when I'm definitely more experienced.
When you're all grown up.
Yeah, when I'm all grown up.
You're a big girl.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah, one day. I in like quite a few years. Yeah, definitely. That would be the goal.
She keeps saying quite a few years. I mean, I don't know. At the rate at which she's improving,
No.
I don't think it'll be quite a few years. So I get to see what she's doing every day. So it's really great. I mean, work ethic is just so powerful. If you're doing it solid every single day, everyone's like, "Oh, you're so talented," it's so much has to do with just how hard are you willing to work. Because it doesn't matter how much talent you have, and some people might have more capacity than others when they start out of like understanding and learning quicker. But at the end of the day, it's the person that is the grittiest person that gets ahead. You know, it's the person that can withstand like literally being there day in and day out, you know, working on this thing.
Do you find like teaching helps you with painting or?
Oh my gosh, yes. I you know, it's one of those like things where you hear people say, "Oh, I learned more than you know than I actually thought I was actually getting, but I actually received." And it's definitely like that. At least for me, it is. Where you actually feel like you're receiving a lot from teaching. But I also love teaching. I know that a lot of people just don't have the heart of a teacher, you know. Some people out there are just like, just want to get through it. But if you love teaching, oh man, it sharpens your own mind and keeps your eyes very sharp because you're trying so hard to see through the eyes of your students of what they're trying to see and how sometimes like it's easy for you to know how to problem solve for your own work, but when you see the problems that other people are having, they're a different set of problems, and to like get your mind in that situation to help solve their problems is really quite a little difficult. And so I find it really rewarding. So.
Okay, next question. Do galleries prefer paintings on canvases or wood panels or linen mounted on panels according to archivalness and transportation, etc.? Or archivalness. Archivalness, yes.
Man, I've never heard a gallery ask you to paint on a particular thing, nor have I even heard them ask for their own, benefit or improvement, what you paint on. So like, for them, I don't think it necessarily matters, because they don't have to worry about the archivalness of a piece, because that doesn't happen for another 1,000 years or 100 years, or 50 years. So, so I don't think it really matters to the gallery, but I do think that it matters to a lot of artists, and I think it should. If you want your work to last for a while, I definitely think there's paintings out there that I wish weren't archival, that would die a quick death. But yeah,
maybe that was a spell or something.
It might internally combust and just burn up quickly. No, I don't want anyone's homes burning down, but if just the work could burn,
It could become a Banksy.
That's it. Oh yeah, see, Banksy had the right idea, man. The anti-archival work of art.
Yeah, for my show I had just panel, then I had linen mounted on panel, and then I had linen stretched on stretcher bars. So I kind of did the whole spectrum, and the gallery owner did not care.
Louis Alvino is commenting on your composition. He says, Louis, your composition is great. Love the depth. It invokes mystery, tells a story.
Nice. Well, I appreciate it.
And then Ruby says, this is my first time watching you, but I don't really know anything about the studio or what you do. Could you say a little bit more about this?
Oh, definitely. So, East Oak Studio, it's owned by Michael Klein and myself, Louis Carr, and Alex and Divya are full-time painters with us here, and are really a part of this family. We're based out of North Carolina, and what we love to do is we actually are trying to create content for artists to be able to improve their artistic journey, or for it to contribute to their artistic journey. So that could be everything from tutorial videos to actual storytelling of other artists and what's going on in the world of art, you know. So we're here to help educate in any way we can. And so part of our vision is to spread hope through beauty, and that we believe that that's by creating great artists and great art. And so I guess that would be my quick elevator pitch. But we Michael Klein and I, we try to do a lot of video content, both free and paid. The free is just because we want to give as much as we can, and then we'll have artists from some of the best artists in the country from across the country. Honestly, across the world. We even filmed somebody in Italy this year, Danielle Estone, and to try to bring that content to you. So we try to do most of them live if we can, so that you can ask questions, so you don't feel like you have to fly across the world to go see a particular artist that you love to follow. So that's our heart. We're trying to bring stuff to you. I mean, back in the day, when I was painting in Mississippi by myself, it was just difficult for me to get to anyone. And so I had a real heart for wanting to try to bring the studios to people in their living rooms, because I remember when it was really difficult for me to be able to get around. So that's our vision. And we're so happy you're here. If you want more information, we do have an email list. You can sign up for our email, and we will continue to announce different workshops, and whenever we're doing free live streams and things like that, we continue to try to keep our followers informed on what we're doing. But this particular type thing we do about once a month.
And SV wants to know, if and when any of you work from photos, are there any things you do in the painting to bring back more life that photos tend to flatten out?
That's a good question from you, Alex.
Yeah. I mean, it's just a lot of, when you're painting from life, when you paint a lot from life, you notice things differently, or when you're painting from a photo, you can remember things from life. So I think a lot of it has to do with the photograph flattens out the shadows a lot. And so I think about that when I paint. I remember even when I was painting in Virginia, if I was painting from a photo, I would take all of the paintings I ever did from life and kind of have them next to me painting, so I could kind of feel what a painting from life looks like. But I feel like it just has a lot to do with the richness in the shadows, the richness of color, and really just kind of pulling out the 3D sculptural form of something, because photograph just tends to flatten things out. But it's not a really simple answer.
Yeah, I mean, that's a tough thing to just explain in a few words, for sure. I think, but everything you said is very, very true. So when we squint, we're taking our eye and trying to operate it like an aperture on a photograph, and so we're trying to separate just lights and darks so that we can almost flatten the image when we're looking at it from life, to get just an understanding of the composition, because it helps us, right? But for that same reason, an aperture on a camera actually can only see a particular range of value of light and dark. And so it can't give you the entirety of the range that your eye is able to be able to see, because your eye, basically the pupil of your eye is like adjusting aperture like every 2 seconds. It's adjusting light and dark all day, the whole time. And because it does it so rapidly, we don't even know that it's doing it. But our eyes are just incredibly sensitive to light in situations. So because of that, and because of our binocular vision, we see things much more sculpturally than like a single aperture at one given state on one lens can do for us. And so it kind of puts you at a bit of a disadvantage, in your imagination and understanding the illusion of how your eye operates will help you be able to create or recreate from a photo. I would say that it takes practice, though, a whole lot of practice, and the practice comes from life mainly, and then trying to apply what you've learned from life to what you know to be true in a photo.
Mark says, Alex, looking forward to your opening next Saturday. The detailed shots I've seen look incredible. I saw your 2 paintings at LA Art Show this year and was stunned by their beauty and luminosity.
Oh wow, thank you so much. You said it, Mark, yeah.
Mark Arian.
Awesome. Yes.
Awesome, Mark. I'm excited that you'll be able to go.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's gonna be really interesting. I wonder how you feel seeing the finished paint, the actual finished paintings, opposed in relation to just the details. But yeah, that's so awesome.
What are your thoughts going into this show, Alex?
I'm trying to now leave all the thoughts about the show in the past until it happened. I almost feel like the show is over, because just so much of it for me was getting the paintings finished.
Mm-hmm.
So it's gonna be interesting. I wonder how it'll feel to just see the paintings again. And so my thought is I need to get a nice pair of clothes.
That don't have paint on them.
Yeah. Not like a band t-shirt.
You weren't going to wear a Metallica t-shirt?
No, not this.
Guys, I'm actually having a lot of fun. This is awesome. At first I'm like, man, who put the grapes in there? Which I'm still kind of having that thought.
And then the whole time you're resentful to that person.
Yeah, but come on, man. Grapes, really? For 3 hours? But,
That's how I'm feeling about this skull.
oh man. My skull's so wonky, but it's going to be alright. We'll get it there. Yeah, if you could put skin and muscle, I don't want to know what this person looks like, you know what I mean? It could be scary. But,
Divya, how are you feeling about the show?
Oh, I'm so excited to see all the painting, all of Alex's paintings up, and just him getting the, I don't know, just people just being in awe of the paintings, and me just being, I'm just really excited about that. Just and I don't know.
Because
Just
you've
sensory.
invested a good amount of time in, posing and
Yeah.
It's true. You're just as much a part of this show than Alex is.
Yeah.
Visually.
Visually, you're about 50% of the show.
Yeah.
Sadly, probably more than 50.
No, I'm just so excited. Like, Alex has been like just working so hard for the past. Well, it's been less than a year, and just like seeing it all come together, and him getting the like just like hearing what people think and like the reactions. Like because they're just so amazing. Like they're so beautiful. So I'm really excited about that. And it's just like a very sort of full circle for Alex, and like quite a surreal moment, I think. Like in his whole painting career, this is going to be a very significant show.
Yeah. Truly. Yeah, it's your first solo show. Yeah, it'll be a pivotal time. It is a pivotal time in your life. We'll never forget that first show, you know?
Yeah, I technically had a solo show at this gallery in New York called Dacia Gallery. Dacia or Dacia. And that was okay. That was, when was that? A couple of years ago. Some of the paintings hiding in the closet when that show.
Gotcha.
Maybe I should just not mention it and it'll disappear.
Do you want all of those paintings to be archival? Or would you like them to like internally combust too?
No, I think I could paint over them.
Hey, see?
Yeah.
It's a free panel.
Yeah.
Nick says, this stream is outstanding. It is great to see some of my favorite artists working in real time.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, that's why we do it, you know. It's so that y'all have opportunity. You know, I feel like some people just, they wish they could, like, community in the art world is tough because art is kind of a lonely business. You know, you're at home kind of working by yourself. You know, we're very fortunate that all of us get to paint together, but you know, 90% of the population doesn't get that opportunity, and so we know how important it is to be able to have access to your fellow artists and people that care to follow you and want to enjoy seeing what you do. And it was something that was really powerful for me when I was a young kid. There was this artist in our town named Marshall Bolden who was just a very known portrait painter locally and nationally. And I would just go over sometimes and just sit and watch him paint. And he was just such a charming, humble guy, and you know, had a huge impact on my life. I looked up to him as a role model. And you know, it was important. All the things that he said was important. You know, it really shaped my career and my life. So we're honored to be able to like hang out with y'all and to be able to hear your comments and have your questions asked. That's why we do it.
And you guys have been asking some really great questions.
I mean, such great questions, dynamic questions. I love what David Casson said one time. There's no wrong question, but I might have there's no stupid question, but I might have a stupid answer.
So speaking of questions, Jamie Yates says, what are your opinions about hyper-realistic and photorealistic artists? Do you find their works more skillful or less?
Ooh, that's a good question.
Less.
Yeah.
I guess I should think about that argument more before I actually speak it, but I just think, you know, it's hard because people could say the same thing about art, like our work, but you might as well just have a photo. Like, it looks so much like a photo that it would be hard to tell the difference between the photo. But no, it's just not my thing.
Did he?
Yeah, and like in the mid of painting, so I want to have a much smarter answer.
So photorealism is like copying the photo, right? Or like making it so exact. That's what the definition
I think
is.
of like those, because he said hyperrealism as well. So I think of like those
Like where you see the
super
pores on your
big
skin,
Oh,
it's
yeah.
super
heads
huge.
with the pores of the skin.
Like yeah, right. Oh yeah. I mean, it's like impressive to like copy, like just like to get the thing that you're painting correct. Like that's like hard enough, but I'm not like, I like more things that feel more like paint and less like sort of tight. But like tight, I don't know how to explain it.
Yeah, it's hard because there is like good versions of tight.
Yeah, exactly. There are, yeah. So tight's like a weird word to use, but yeah.
You know, I think that part of that on the photorealism aspect, or the hyperrealism, is I'd like to just speak in honestly to the audience aspect, or the viewer of that work. The thing that's hard about the viewer when they're looking at hyperrealistic work is that it's so much like a photograph, and we're inundated with so many photographs every day of our life, you know, more so than we've ever been in the history of humanity, that it's hard for them to detach that somebody used skill to create this thing. So I actually think that those people work incredibly hard to make it look so hyper-realistic, you know, and there's I think a particular type of personality that just loves to like zen out and like work really hard on these monstrous paintings to be so exact with every pore. But I think as a viewer, it's difficult for them to understand how much work went into a piece like that, because they see photos all the time, and so their mind just switches over to photo. But what I think that, as on an artist standpoint for what we do, is that we leave a bit of the mystery in the painterly mark that we're creating. And I think that it not only makes our work digestible as works of art, but it also allows for people to be reminded in our work that this is a skill that someone's putting out there. This is not just another photo that they're looking at, but that somebody put time and effort into that. And sometimes I think that just gets lost in hyperrealism and photorealism. You know, so it's like the viewer can't even really appreciate it as much. Now that's not necessarily criticism as it is just an observation to that world. And I'm sure there's people out there that work incredibly hard to make that kind of work, but it's not what appeals to my eye, because part of the poetry is what you leave out, not what you put in. And that's the case for everything, you know. That's the case for like literal poetry and for music and other things. If you put everything into the piece and all the information, your mind doesn't have anything to focus on. And so part of the skill is knowing how to abbreviate and get the mind to push towards focus of a particular thing that you're trying to say, you know. So I think part of the skill that's really hard for what we do is, what do we leave out? What do we abbreviate? You know. That was probably way more answer than that question was asking, but yeah, I mean, it's a lot to unpack, and you could have conversations for years on just that one topic, you know.
So I remember I was in principal gallery, and there was this really awesome like group show going on, and I know like Rob Liberace had some paintings in it, Teresa Oaxaca had some paintings in it, and I was talking with the gallery owner, with some other people, and this guy comes up and he's like, that painting right there is the best painting in the whole gallery. And I looked at it and it was just like 4 eggs, but they were painted so photorealistically that the guy just couldn't, like, that's the best painted thing I've ever seen. It was so real. When there was just so much more like artful work around with, you know, people trying for poetry and like just beautiful composition and all this, and the guy was just like, that's the best painting in the gallery. So these 3 eggs, because it was just so.
These people get over it.
Yeah.
That's really funny.
So Kevin says, Alex is insanely good. How do you keep motivation as an artist?
I've been struggling with it recently after the show's been over. I think about this a lot, and I feel like a big part of it is, you know, well, it also depends on what level, but a lot of times it's just doing it. You just have to do it. So it's kind of like, how do you find inspiration? Most of the time I don't have inspiration, or I don't even necessarily feel like doing it, but would I rather be doing something else? Like, absolutely not. So it's kind of like the thing that charges me to like want to like make an awesome painting, or like just looking at other paintings. Those things like are important. So you have to remember them, but even when it's hard to remember why you're inspired to paint. You just do it anyway. I mean, most of the time, like in the doing, you kind of find it. Yeah.
I listened to a Chuck Close lecture once, and he said in it that inspiration is for amateurs. If you're waiting for inspiration, that's for amateurs, because inspiration comes from work. And he says, as long as you start working first, don't wait to be inspired. Just start working, and you'll be inspired. And I find that almost always the case for me. If I'm not inspired, you know, sitting on my butt actually does not give me any more inspiration. But there's something in the journey of mystery that you're trying to, like, when you're working on something, that really pushes you to such a mindset or a state of mind that makes you really want to like figure out what's going on here, and then in there's some sort of aha moment that pushes you to inspiration.
So, my Olivia says something really interesting. She says, I think another thing lacking in hyperrealism is a reflection of the artist. I feel like less of the artist's personality shows through, which is what makes a painting special.
Yeah, definitely.
And that's very interesting.
Yeah, there's almost such a definite product in hyperrealism that if it doesn't look the same as another hyperrealist, it's almost like you messed up.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That's a good point.
World of David Wood says, hi, thanks for doing this. Do you consider the drying times of your color mixtures when it comes to the drying times of the pigments when working on a painting?
Alex, you tackle that one.
Well, yeah. Yeah, you think about it. Just you think about your work schedule. So, like right now, I'm painting this skull, and I'm using a lot of heavy light in it, and I'm using like a titanium white, so there's no way I'd be able to paint in that tomorrow. So, let's say I wanted to be in a situation where I could keep working on this painting tomorrow. Well, maybe I would use lead white, and then also maybe thinking about maybe using like some umbers in my shadows. Sometimes I use a faster drying medium, but then also you could also think of like working on two paintings at once. So while one's drying, you can work on the other one, or just doing different sections of the painting. So while one's drying, you work on a different section. But yeah, it's always kind of a consideration, because there's nothing like I need to paint today, but the thing I'm painting isn't dry yet.
I found it interesting that Rachel Personette starts from the top of the painting and works her way down.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's cool.
That is cool.
Yeah, she definitely has a method that she follows, and it really works for her. You know, and she's like one of those direct painters too that just, you know, has such a great touch in her paint mark making. Yeah, if anyone's interested, y'all should. There's an interview with her on YouTube that's free. She just recently we filmed a live stream with her, or we filmed a workshop tutorial demo with her, which will be out next month. If y'all are interested, y'all can sign up for our email list, and we'll be announcing it not too far out from now, but. It will be only a few weeks away before we put that out on the market. But she's an incredible young artist who travels the world and has a real direct painting style, very painterly in her mark making. And she is always all over the place. I think she's in Greece right now. She'll be there for a little while, and but she frequently goes to like Russia and all sorts of places. So she is an incredible plein air painter as much as a still life painter. So I should check her out.
SB says, can you all talk about your experience with galleries? What to look out for, what to avoid?
It's really hard question because the way I just kind of set out was, okay, so there's these kind of, maybe let's say 3 galleries before I was in galleries and when I was first learning how to paint. There's these 3 galleries that I really like because the painters that I like are in these galleries. And I'm not going to try and get into galleries until I think I'm good enough to be in those galleries. So that's the way I went about it, so I don't know how to... And I knew those galleries were fine and good because all these great, or the painters that I liked were using them and I trusted their judgment, so... I don't really know. That answers my question.
I would say that there gallery pitfalls. One pitfall to consider is it's just, you know, I don't know. There's sometimes you hear about dishonesty in galleries. You know, if a gallery doesn't seem to be doing too well, you know, where you hear sort of they'll rob Peter to pay Paul, which basically means that they'll sell one of your paintings but not tell you because they owe another artist because they sold one of their paintings and then paid another artist that they owed earlier. And so it sort of like gets them in sort of a cycle because they're trying to like pay rent And so I think that having a understanding that you know a gallery that has a good track record would be really helpful. How long have they been in business? You know, have they changed owners a lot? You know, just doing a bit of research might be helpful for you. I believe, I'm not positive, but I think David Gluck had put together some sort of like forum of bad galleries that artists can like contribute to. I can't remember who told me that, but
Well, that's a great idea.
it's some sort of like anonymous thing that you can post to that if something went wrong. So I'd say look out for it, just because I hear horror stories all the time, and from great artists, you know. So I remember when Jeff Hine was staying with us, he was saying that like he you know was victim of that at one point. So so yeah, it's something to look into for sure.
Yeah, I think something happened to Jeremy Mann.
Oh,
I
that's
saw him
right.
posting that I don't know if the gallery stole his work or just
Yeah, kept it. Yeah, I remember.
sold it, won't pay him.
I remember Jeff Hine saying that like the gallery, and it was a gallery that kind of like made him really known. He said that near the end of their business, you know, they basically kept like $40,000 worth of his work or something crazy like that, that he never saw again. So I think another great practice if you're going to be in galleries is log all of your work of what you have going to the gallery. Because I've heard so many people say, if I just had logged what went to what place, then I would know better like who has what and if something had sold. So, so sometimes like if you haven't seen work for a while and you're like, I forgot where is that, and you like look on your log to see like who did you give that painting to. One way Michael Klein gets around it is he limits the amount of paintings that go to each gallery. So he says, okay, if you want to show my work, I'll give you 2 pieces. Sell those 2 pieces, and then I'll give you more. And if they don't sell those 2 pieces, then he'll go, okay, I'll take those back, and I'll give you 2 more pieces. And if you can sell those, then great. And so I think that kind of helps him not only keep track of who has what painting, but it also helps motivate the gallery to sell that work.
Do most galleries work on like with contracts, or is it just
No,
buddy
sadly.
system?
Yeah, it's a buddy system. Sadly, they don't work on contracts, which is a very big disadvantage to the artist. So one of the like really sneaky practices that you hear bad galleries doing is like they'll sell your work for a certain value, but if they know that they have a buyer who would pay more for it, they will buy the work from you without you knowing it, like personally, and then sell it personally to that other collector at a much higher price. So say that the work was worth $10,000. The gallery owner will buy it for $10,000 and then sell it to this other person for $20,000 and make a $10,000 profit if he feels like he can. So, and you can do that if there's like no contracts involved, because it's just basically an owner of a work of art finding a buyer that was interested in that work of art. So.
David Wood says, a lot of artists have essentially become independent entrepreneurs these days for selling their work through online activities. What's your biggest love and hate of this process?
Oh man, Well, I love this process. So there's definitely, I'm sure, its shortcomings. One of the shortcomings, I'll start with a few of the shortcomings just because I think there's a lot of positive, and I'll end on a positive note. So the shortcoming is that you are your own marketer. So and if you want to become incredibly known, that means that you have to invest heavily into the marketing of your career. Now, personally, as far as like fame is concerned, I wouldn't say I'm actually the best at doing that. I'm not quite that awesome at it, but I am really good at marketing by word of mouth. So the way people know me is through my works in other people's homes, and I've just created an incredible network. So just to like be clear, majority of my career, and when I mean majority, I mean up in the 90%, is from me operating as a sole proprietor and sole dealer of my own work. And it's been very rewarding. So just talk about just some of the positives. So the marketing part of it, you might not just be incredibly famous. You know, galleries can really put your name on the map. The positive side is, number one, you get to keep that 40 to 50% that a gallery would get commission from, you get to keep. Well, that basically doubles the amount of profit that you have from your work. So that, I think, is really awesome because it's hard enough to survive as an artist. Secondarily, most of the time, if I'm selling a work, like a commissioned piece or something, I'm commissioning them for the order of the painting alone. And it is separate to the frame. So for a gallery, you have to pay for the frame. The gallery's not going to pay for the frame. So not only are you getting 40% taken out, but you're also having to pay for the frame as well. Now the upside is well, you get to have aesthetic choice on what frame is going around your painting, which is very important. But aside from that, I think that's one of those things where it's just like you really get to have a lot of control over your work. So the other things that I like about it is that there are other routes you can take. So representation of an agency is really great because the painting and the other reason for doing it on your own is the paintings are already sold. You know, if you have an order for a painting, you don't have to worry about selling the painting. You already know that it's sold. So commission work, I think, is incredible addition to what you should be doing. But an agency is really great at that too because they might be taking 40% of your work or commission of your work, but at least the painting is already sold. You don't have to worry about it not being sold, you know? So half the battle is already won. Anybody else want to chime in on that? I feel like I've kind of hogged the mic on that one.
Well, that's where you're doing it. So it makes sense.
Lucas wants to know, are you full-time artists?
Yes. We are all three of us are full-time painters. That's what we do day in and day out.
Wasn't always like that though. I
Yeah,
was
that's great.
painting. I mean, before I moved here, I was living and before I got into galleries, I was in Virginia Beach, living at home, basically to like keep my costs low, and then I was working part time. First at like a movie theater, and then at a car shop, just to kind of afford to be able to. And I worked really part time, so I did have, and all the rest of my time was So I spent most of my learning how to paint, working part-time and then also painting, which is, I think, important to know that that's possible.
Yeah.
But I also kind of made myself live at home because it would make it basically better for painting, more affordable so I could paint more.
Mark Arian wants to know, painting on the more slippery surface of a lead ground compared to oil and gesso ground seems to take more care not to mess up previously correct work. Any tips other than attentiveness?
Do you understand this, Lily?
Well, you can change the tooth of your ground. I mean, if you're getting the ground, if it's already primed, ground, then it's one thing. I think that sadly, most painting, even if you're painting brushy, requires extreme attentiveness. So, I don't know if there's any stage where I feel like I can just let up. There's so many times where I'll just start painting, and then I have to be like, oh wait, I'm not thinking. I gotta think about what I'm doing. So I feel like that's just a constant battle, regardless of what stage or what you're doing in painting. But with the way you apply your ground can greatly change the way your brush will handle itself on the painting. So, for example, right now I'm working on Clausen's 13 double primed. And Clausen's 13 double primed compared to Clausen's 13 quadruple primed, it is a totally different experience. One's got just incredibly heavy tooth, and so the paint just grips with every move that you make with it. And then when I'm painting with quadruple primed, just the paint just glides across the surface. So it's almost like you have to be attentive, but it's a different type of attentiveness on both surfaces. You have to pay attention to the texture and what you're doing, how the mark making happens in that texture. The other one, you're having to make sure that you glide, when you're gliding across, that you just don't, that you actually have control over your brush a little bit more. So, I don't know if that actually answers your question very well, but with that, it's just hard to. Yeah, it's hard to balance your brush regardless, So I think it takes a lot of practice of just knowing the properties of a particular canvas and just stick with one for a while and get yourself used to it and how your brush works with it.
This is a perfect time to ask. Lucas wants to know, what do you think about using wood panels for oil painting?
I'm guessing wood with a ground on it, not just.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah.
He doesn't say.
Yeah. The only one I've worked on is, what do they call it? Is it dyba? No, not dyba. There's a certain word that they use, but basically it's hardboard.
Masonite?
Masonite, yeah.
Yeah.
That's the only, and it works exactly the same because once then has a ACN panel, because once it has the ground on it, it's just the same. ACN panel is easier to cut. See that?
ACM is probably a really good route to go, just because regular wood panels, whether it be a particular type of plywood or something else, or like just a regular piece of wood, is that the cellulose structures that are in wood actually make the wood over time warp due to humidity sort of expanding and contracting it. So I would say because of that, you would want to steer away from anything that has like directional cellulose in it. So plywood, it actually has it going in both opposite directions, but it still has, the glue over time still has susceptibility to humidity and eventually can possibly warp. But there are panels, if you go to museums, you'll see panels all the time that artists painted on, back in antiquity. And but you'll also notice that some of them will be worked in a particular way. There'll be like a bow on them like this. And so they make the frames to where it actually helps you see. And that wasn't intentional. That's literally the cellulose structure creating that bow.
I didn't know that. I thought it was meant to be like that.
Yeah. So, and so that's them trying to compensate for it by creating these like wide frames that allow for the wood. So they used to use all sorts of cradling, which is the structure that kind of holds the wood in place. But over time, they found that cradling actually makes it worse. So, so all of that to be said, masonite actually is probably one of your best bets in that world, if you want to use some sort of wood panel. But it can't even hold a candle to like ACM panel. But if that's like a surface you like to paint on, then that's just a different story. It's kind of like, shoot, those paintings have lasted thousands of years. They might have a bit of warp in them, but some of them have lasted, 800 years. So I think you'll be all right. It'll happen well when you're gone. We'll pass that point.
So Judy has a values question. She says, unless it is the lighting, it looks like one is mixing on a white surface, not a mid-tone gray. Can you expand on that? I have such trouble with values.
Oh, that might.
I think she means yours, Alex, yeah.
Yeah, so on camera, it probably looks white, but if you put up something white to it, it actually is a gray.
Uh-huh.
I'm trying to see. Like,
A paper towel or something.
where you can see it. Not sure. But anyway, the camera's probably making it look more white in comparison to the black around it, but it is a gray.
Yeah, I might
I would say that their palettes that Divya and Lewis are working on are more like a darker mid-tone, and this is more of a lighter mid-tone gray. But both still gray. White would be, I think, very hard for me to mix up. I think.
Let's see. So Lewis, what ground is used to prime Clayson's linen you use?
That's a really good question, actually. I believe it's not lead, so I believe it's probably a titanium primer of some sort. It would be my guess. So,
Oil ground.
yeah, it's definitely an oil, whatever it is. So it's not acrylic based. But if I'm not mistaken, it's probably going to be some sort of like a titanium lead oil white. But I think I can check Raymar. Raymar would have it on their website what they use. I'm sure, or even on their label.
Alvina says, Lewis said is correct on working one painting can lead you to another. Have you worked on multiple paintings at once?
Yes, I'm working on multiple paintings at once as we speak. Working on this one. Yeah, it was a bad joke. And I'm working on one of my lovely wife that has it's slightly been put on hold because I'm working on several other ones. But I find that working on multiple works keeps my mind fresh. It's hard sometimes to keep sharp with one piece, and so I've found that working on multiple actually keeps me going. It keeps my eyes fresh. I think our eyes just get so tired so fast, and it's a way to keep them nimble. So there'll be days where I'm like working on something and I'll be like, oh, that's a horrible area, but I'll get back to it later. And then I like look at it later and I'm like, well, it's really not that bad. And I'll look a little bit later in the day and I'll be like, actually, no, I kind of like it. And then like the next morning I'll wake up and look at it and go, what was I thinking? That looks horrible. And it's just because my eyes were getting tired, and you start compromising on things. And so that's what I would say. I'd say that it helps your eyes not get tired.
Is the painting of Parisa finished?
It's not finished. There are like 3 different things I want to do to it, but I don't think it would take me long to finish it. So, because I'm excited. Everybody should follow us on Instagram. Alex Venezia. It's Alex Venezia, right? That's all it is.
Alex J. Venezia.
Alex J. Venezia. Venezia is like you would say Venice in Italian. And Divya Melaleuca, is that how it's said?
Yeah.
Add Divya Melaleuca, and then mine is, I believe, Lewis Carr Fine Art, and that's Louis. But go there and follow all of us, and we'll keep you posted on the paintings that we're working on. So I can't wait to post that one when I'm done, because that's one I'm just really excited about. It's my first one of my wife, so it has a lot of meaning.
You need to catch up.
I know, Alex is way ahead of the game. David Wood wants to know, do any of you ever paint just from the imagination? If so, what are the themes, subjects you like to paint?
No, but I want to. I'd like to. And that's what I mentioned earlier, that I want to take an anatomy, take some more anatomy lessons just to get familiar with the human body so that I can start making things up. Because I just think about old masters coming up with these multi-figure compositions and how they can probably work from their imagination. And there's actually a student at the Nerdrum studio right now, Sebastian Salvo, who just comes up with these incredible multi-figure compositions, like sketches for his paintings. And I've been in that studio. There's no way he's fitting 100 people in there to pose for a painting, so he just understands human figure and all that well enough to make it up. So I think it's a really great skill.
Yeah, he's pretty amazing.
Yeah, talk about y'all's Nerdrum experience of being there, and how it's kind of shaped. What you loved, what you felt like, inspired you there?
Rachel also went there.
Oh yeah, Rachel Parson went there.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
Mm-hmm.
Another link.
She went there for quite a while, right? It was like 6 months or something.
Yeah.
It's a good long stay.
Yeah.
But Divya, what would you say?
Oh, it was really amazing. Just so inspiring and like life changing. To be in his world, to be in Nerdrum's world, and like watch him paint and like see the Norwegian landscape, and like basically you feel like you're living with like him and a bunch of painters and his family. Yeah, it was, and just like the whole atmosphere was just like amazing. You kind of feel like you're in a time vortex. Is that the right word to use?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you feel like time doesn't exist. And I was there for 6 months, so it was just like this 6 months of just feeling like nothing else existed sort of outside of the school. Yeah, it was pretty amazing. I didn't know knew anything about painting when I went. Like I barely knew anything. So I would say that because you are it's not like a school, it's more like a studio. It's very different sort of going there as Alex went there he'd already been painting for a few years. I went there not knowing anything. You get different experiences with your stage of painting. I feel like I would, it would be so different for me if I went in a few years. It was really amazing. And I like their philosophies on painting. I like Odd's philosophies on painting and, narrative painting and Aristotle and I feel very honored to have been there. I met Alex there.
Yep.
I've never been there.
That's kind of a great positive result from that.
Alex, do you usually use photo reference to paint drapery and clothes?
That's a good question. It all depends on the lighting of the painting I'm working on, but when I can, I love to set up the clothes on a mannequin and actually be able to paint the clothes from life if I'm not able to actually have a model there. But I will also, if I'm working from photo reference, if I'm not able to do that, I'll work from the photo, But I was doing this, one of the pieces for the show is this small interior painting, and there's Divya's modeling in a small interior, or a small figure. And for the clothes for that, I just kind of set up the mannequin and put her clothes on. So I was able to, and I always paint, if I'm able to do that, then I'll paint that first, because I know that that's real, accurate values, and then I can compare those to the photograph, so it helps me adjust the actual figure to look more like real life.
We really want to buy one of those movable mannequin things.
Oh,
Yeah, where the lens moves.
Where the limbs move and everything.
yeah, that's a good idea.
We really want to get one of them.
Maybe East Oaks should invest in one of those.
East Oaks mascot?
Yeah, we can dress it up.
Yeah. Give it a name.
East Oaks.
Hang out with Skelly over here.
Phyllis.
Phyllis.
I like Phyllis.
Natal says, do you know how to protect oil painting works from mold? I found some browns get stained after some time. What could I do to prevent that? Thanks. So nice what you do.
I know Michael had mold on his paintings when he was in Argentina.
Mm.
I think it's because it was just really humid.
Yeah, moisture, I mean, would be the first thing that comes to my mind. You know, make sure that you keep them as far away from as much humidity and moisture as possible. You know, once the mold is on there, I mean, aside from getting it out of any kind of damp area, I'm not really sure what would be the best situation to handle that. You know, I know that you can get this, like, where they'll take dry ice, which is carbon dioxide compressed and reduced down to a solid and a liquid form, and they will actually, there are companies that will, like, you know, blow that onto, usually it's used for like walls and houses and stuff if you have mold, but it might actually be a safe way to do that to your canvas. I just know that cold at those temperatures might actually be harmful to the paint structure as well. So I'm not really sure if that's the best direction, but that is a direction to look into that might give you some insight on that. But it's a good question. It's interesting. I actually have never been asked that particular question. So it's something to look into.
Lucas asks, what do you think about self-taught in art? I think is what he meant to say. Is it necessary to go to an academy?
No. I didn't go to an academy, so I don't think it's necessary. The only thing that I felt like that I lack, again, that I've mentioned before, is just practice and drawing. So there was no one there to make me practice drawing, so it's just making full paintings. But I think it's very doable if you're able to, I mean, with so many amazing kind of like art videos and books, and if you're able to go to workshops, that was a big thing. So yeah, but I definitely think it is great to go to an academy.
You know, if there's just so much information starting to get online, that the information is out there for you to learn. I think a better question is how do you learn? If you are a person that learns by mimicking, I think that you can learn a lot by yourself. You know, if you like, you know, art videos and all those things that, like Alex was just saying, if you're actually spending that time and you're literally mimicking what they do, I think you can learn an incredible amount. Here's what I would say that what helps with classical instruction is that you can find out what's wrong a lot faster if you have someone who will let you know. You know, and I remember for hours, even days, I would stare at paintings that I was working on going, okay, something is really wrong and I don't know what it is. And it wasn't until I went to an atelier where I actually had some of those questions answered, which was really powerful for me, to get, like, have some serious, like we were talking about earlier, aha moments. So that being said, is yes, I think that they have a special place where you can, but if you're the type of person that can learn an incredible amount by literally like mimicking what other people are doing, you can learn. You just probably won't learn as quickly as someone who gets to have somebody's insight.
Yeah, and if you can't go to an atelier, like there's not one around you, you can't afford it, then yeah, try really hard to make yourself that kind of person. That you just try really hard to mimic and just have really good work ethic.
So this is a fun comment. Matea Bakorbic says, do you plan on going to the Nerdrum school again? Greetings from a fellow student of odds. Congrats on the show, Alex and Divya. Your work is becoming wonderful.
Thank you.
And if it's the Matea that I'm thinking of, I believe she was at the school. She left the school the day before I got there, if it's the right Matea.
Oh, really?
I think so.
Well, that's cool.
Perhaps. But, hello.
Hello! Shout out!
Shout out.
Yes, I feel like I've said I would love to go back to the school in a few years. Maybe in like 5 years or something. Or like maybe a little less. Yeah, I would love to go back.
Yeah.
I feel like I would get maybe a lot more from it now just because it was all so new to me. Yeah. What do you think, Alex? Would you like to go back?
Yeah, I guess y'all are kind of tethered now.
Yeah, if you got to be
I'm
good.
not going if you're going. No, yeah, it'd be awesome. Yeah, in due time, it would be cool. It was such a different experience. Very unique.
Well, how do y'all feel about where you are in your painting?
Why? What time is it?
Yeah, we're just hitting the 3-hour mark
Oh,
now.
wow, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
So,
It is what it is.
yeah. Y'all, we usually typically do this for 3 hours. And maybe we'll continue to chat about having, maybe doing another session with it. Who knows? But we really appreciate y'all joining us tonight. And, remember, if there's any other questions you have, just feel free to email us at eastoakstudio.com. That's sort of our central hub. That's where we do most of our stuff. We do have an email list, and you can follow us on Instagram as well at East Oak Studio. But we've really enjoyed having y'all on. And I think all of us should go over into like that right by the desk, since we don't have a wide angle, and like wave to the camera and say bye.
I think it's a great idea.
All right. So Divya, you go first.
Okay.
It's separately.
Wait,
Yeah,
no.
it's right there. It's right there.
Oh, I
So your
thought
head,
you
your
were
head is right
We're
there.
going together.
Oh. All right.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.
Oh.